Meanwhile, a busy French Quarter this weekend was a welcome sight for struggling businesses in New Orleans. Look at that. Here's what it looked like around 11 Saturday night on Bourbon Street. That was, of course, the first night of Phase 3.2 in the city. But those large crowds and lack of social distancing are causing some concern when it comes to potential coronavirus numbers. The city now says its task force will be closely monitoring as more people are out in the city. In a series of tweets, the city says it's aware of the crowds and is reminding everybody to wear masks, social distance, and wash their hands. Also under this phase, alcohol sales must end at 11. The city stresses that any businesses not in compliance with guidelines will be met with action, and that anything that leads to the potential of a super spreader event will not be condoned. We'll have the latest case numbers later in the show.